Children being separated from their parents at the Mexican border is the worst, the most insidious, the most inflammatory sort of fake news that the Trump haters and the shrill media lackeys could possibly engage in. It's almost like, especially the story of the baby being ripped from the bosom of its mother and taken away into a concentration camp. I mean, this is the most blatant war on President Trump that has come down the pike yet. I don't know what more they can say about him. I mean, this is worse than anything that I've seen, and it's a complete, total lie. This is like saying that the Jews are ripping babies away from their mothers so that they can cut them up and use their blood to make matzah. This is a blood libel. It's worse than that. It is meant to inflame the already hate-filled and twisted Trump haters to a pitch that is feverish and is dangerous and fearful. And it's something that should be rejected by any decent person. Furthermore, what about the issue itself? Well, I think it's awfully interesting and ironic that the issue of families being separated at the borders is being brought up now, given the fact that it was implemented in 2013 or 2014, by President Barack Obama to respond to the influx of unaccompanied children and the children of criminals crossing the border. And at that time, I think, from what I understand, Obama did not really want this to be touted too much in the media, and the lapdog media complied, although there were a few articles, and there were some rumblings, especially from the ACLU. We saw pictures recently that the New York Times scrubbed from their website soon after it was exposed of pictures of young boys in cages or behind, fences, with the allegation that these were the children being separated from their parents by Trump. It turns out that those pictures were taken during the Obama administration. But the interesting thing now is because it seems to me that the media waited and the Trump haters waited and held this one off until maybe a year into the Trump administration, during a couple of weeks when President Trump was getting a lot of very good press, both because of the Singapore meeting with Kim Il-jung and also Kim Jong-un, and good employment rates coming out, unemployment down, the economy looking good, many, many good things. So they blasted this thing out there suddenly on Father's Day, interestingly. And the spearhead of it was a lie, the business of the baby being taken away from its mother, which is untrue, which is proven to be so, which is against government policy, and which there's no proof that it ever happened. Now, to get to the truth of what's going on here, I would refer you to an article in Vox magazine, which is a pretty good online publication that looks at the political science of a situation. They are virulently anti-Trump. They're way out on the left. So just so I'm not being accused of promoting some kind of a right-wing rag. Excuse me. Get my mouth around that one. And they have an article about what's going on here on the border with the family separations that is absolutely bashing President Trump and totally, upbraiding him. But in between that, they tell the truth of what this is all about. And what it's about is that you have alleged parents, and when I say alleged, many, if not most of these people actually are not the parent of these children. They're bringing them over the border to use them as human shields so they can get into this country and get scot-free, or try to. And with the enhanced border, the zero tolerance policy of President Trump, they're being apprehended at the border. The children are being put into a safe, humane place. To call these people Gestapo agents is an insult, actually, to the Jewish people, and it's a denial of the Holocaust, because these are not Gestapo agents. This is not a concentration camp. This reminds me of some really right-wing things I heard years ago when the right under Clinton, I think, were, oh, he's building concentration camps, right? And of course, the left scoffed. Well, I'm scoffing now. This is just not happening. It's ridiculous. They're being put in safe places with, government officials who are trying to do their best to be as humane as possible. The process takes about 3 weeks, in which case the parent alleged parent who smuggled them over the border is tried, and if they are found guilty of having a criminal record and convicted, then at that point, the children, the agency looks to find the nearest relative to take the child. And of course, the onus lays on the parent or the alleged parent who used the children knowing they had a criminal record to come across the border. They are the ones who are liable for this. And I think that the American people want to make sure that criminals are not coming across the border. That is what President Trump was elected on. And I believe that's what most Americans want from their government, because that's what governments properly do. They uphold law and order. A criminal with a criminal record, especially a violent criminal, cannot just come into this country unaccounted for. So I would argue that, barring anything else that might come out here, the Trump administration is doing the right thing by apprehending criminals as they come across the border. And if they're going to be evil enough to use children as shields, or even bring their own children over with the possibility that they may be detained, then the children, what do? You put them in jail with the parent? I mean, the children are being well cared for, and they are finding homes for them. Now, ideally, ultimately, the solution to the problem is to build the border fence or wall or whatever you want to call it, so that the illegal crossings will stop, or at least they'll stop 95%. And this has been done before. I'll point to the fact that the state of Israel, by securing walls and fences around regions where terrorists were coming in and killing Jews, that they have been very successful. They have cut down on that activity by 95%. Not perfect, but think of the lives, the innocent lives that they've saved. Same thing in here. Same thing applies. We have to build the wall. We have to get a comprehensive border patrol, or border control, I should say, like any sane sovereign nation does. And then you won't have people smuggling in children so they could get scot-free, and there will not be family separation. And we won't have radical leftists and their stooges and their dupes and their fellow travelers all whipped into a frenzy and goose-stepping around making accusations that the rest of us are like Nazis, which is an outrage and which is despicable. Anyway, I want to thank you for watching, everybody.